Welcome back to Connect and Transform. We're picking up where we left off in our second sub-project for pie charts and donut charts. In today's video, we're going to add some event handlers and animations. So we're going to add some loading animations, and then we'll add handlers for mouse over and mouse out to basically zoom in, or at least have the effect of zooming in on the hovered element. So the first thing we're going to do, since we know we're going to be dealing with animations and timings, I'm going to add a style tag for CSS. So style type equals text dash CSS. Okay, and then we're going to add a single style here, and it will be applicable to all elements. And we're going to be setting the transition property. And we're going to set it for a number of different things. So first, we're going to have a default, all, 0.5 seconds. And then we're going to say that if we are specifically targeting stroke width, we want to treat that a little bit differently. So we'll just say 0.4 seconds. And then opacity, we're also going to treat it at 0.4 seconds for now, but we do want to call it out separately so that we could easily tweak it later if we choose to. And then finally, visibility. We're going to make that one go a little bit faster at 0.3. But the point is that we have a default, and we're calling out these three properties separately because those are the three that we're going to be working with. Next, if we look at this line here where we're setting the stroke width of the pie slice, that is diameter over 2, we're going to change that to 0 because we're going to set an animation. And so we're going to say set timeout. And basically we're going to delay. We're going to set the stroke width to its original property value, and then that's going to be applied over about half a second. So this is going to be document dot query selector and then we know that we have the ID because that's going to be pie slice underscore and then we'll pass in our value of D. Okay, so that's document.querySelector.setAttribute. And we're going to be setting stroke width and then we're going to be setting it to an expression. So let's get that ready. And so we're going to be setting it to diameter over 2. And then we're going to delay just a tiny amount so that the browser doesn't automatically apply that later expression. So let me just save and let's do a quick demo here. Interesting. So stroke width is 0. Okay, so it is getting set. Let's just change this to like 500. Okay, so it's the CSS that's not applying. Oh. Yeah, I've got extra colons in my CSS property. So let's get rid of those. Okay, and then we'll change that back to 10, save, and refresh. Okay, so now you can kind of visualize what I was talking about in the last video. as far as why we're setting the radius of our circle to diameter over 4 instead of diameter over 2. And it has to do with how this is getting filled in. So, okay, we've added an animation. Now, maybe we'll add a mouse over and mouse out to use our zoom. So we'll add a couple of event listeners. Okay, so this is going to be on the pie slice element. So one will be on mouse over. And then the other will be on mouse out. Okay, so when we mouse over a piece, the first thing that we're going to do is, well, we're going to query for all the pie slices, but we're going to zoom the current piece, and then we're going to query for all the pie slices, and we're going to decrease the other piece's opacity, and then we're going to increase our current piece's opacity. So let's start with the zoom. So that will be this dot set attribute. And we're going to be setting the style attribute. And so that will be transform scale, because remember, the piece is being created at the origin point of 0, 0, so there's no need to translate positioning first. Okay, and our scale value is just going to be the constant zoom. That's the one that we predefined to be 1.08 because that somewhat conveniently leaves us with a diameter of exactly 400 if we're targeting a total theoretical rendering space of 432 by 432, which matches the previous project. So that should give us some zoom. Maybe I'll save real quick and we'll refresh. Okay, so when I hover over it, we see that the piece enlarges, and that holds true even in cases like the green here, where they exceed 50% of the circle. So by doing it this way and setting this particular attribute, it just works more nicely with the larger data sets that exceed 50%. So now we're going to have a loop. Maybe I'll just do some copy pasting. Actually, no, we're going to do a query and then we'll just do a for each. So we'll say pie slices equals document dot query selector all. And we're going to target everything that has the class name pie slice, which is why we set the class name pie slice up here on this line. Okay, so we've got our pie slices. And then for each one, we'll say pie slice. We're going to set the opacity to be lesser than it currently is. Okay, so in this case, we're going to set the opacity to 0.5 because you'll remember that we defaulted it to 0.75. So this will make them even less visible. Maybe I'll just save and refresh here and hover. And so pay attention to the depth of the color. It got a little more subtle. It did get more transparent. And then finally, we are going to say this dot set attribute. We're going to set the opacity of the current pie slice to 1. Okay, so now pay attention to the red one. So the red one gets to be more transparent, and it might be hard to see, but the green, okay, it's easier to see on the red, that the red gets to be non-transparent, less transparent, and the green becomes more transparent, as well as having the red actually zoom. Okay, so the mouse over appears to be working exactly as expected. I'm going to copy this and we'll modify it in the mouse out. Okay, so here, instead of zooming in, we're going to be scaling back down to a scale of 1. And then for these, we're going to be resetting the opacity back to the original 0.75 value. And then we don't need this because this loop here will touch the current piece that we've just exited. So there's no need to set that one separately. So let's save, refresh. And so now when I mouse out, the zoom goes away. The opacity shifts, which might be easier to see here. Yeah, the opacity shifts so that it becomes partially transparent again. Everything back to normal. Okay, so that was a demonstration of adding some event listeners, and then also we added some animations. So again, every time I refresh here, it kind of originates from nothing. And then we had a definition here in CSS for the duration of the animations. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.